just have a cup of coffee, then I'll go. Thought that I'd just drop by and let you know that I'm leaving town tomorrow. I'll cause you no more sorrow. I'll just have a cup of coffee, then I'll go. I brought the money like the lawyer said to do. It won't replace all the heartaches I've caused you. It won't take the place of loving you, I know. I'll just have a cup of coffee, then I'll go.
First time in a few years, real coffee, no juice. Welcome to the channel, Grand Colombia. I'm sitting here in Armenia, Colombia, and welcome to another Coffee Time Live. We're going on 4 years now doing Coffee Time Live. Howdy, howdy, howdy. I'll go through them in a minute. You know, it's last week I talked about La Nina and all the rain that's predicted, and there's warnings and cautions out, and it's raining, but it's raining like normally kind of rains this time of year. But I know we're going to get hit pretty good. I mean, when we were in Ecuador, we got slammed when La Nina was in town. Okay. This is not my normal coffee. This is not my Colombian coffee. This coffee is actually from Brazil. I know. But it's one of these pod coffees. You know, it's like you put in the one pod for the cappuccino, and then you put in the other pod for the con leche. And if you want it to be mochaccino, you put in a little squirt of Hershey syrup and stir it up. And I had a pod machine for quite a while. It's a long story how I got it. It wasn't something for me, but I ended up with it. And I got some pods for people that visit because it's quick and easy. So I got some pods a long time ago. And this morning, I start out to, prepare for this. And lo and behold, it automatically my software started uploading a major update. Maybe the biggest update it's ever had. And you know what happens when you get updates, especially when you're not expecting them. Apparently I'd clicked automatically update, and it's unclicked now. And of course my little controller that I control everything that happens, it's not connecting, it's not functioning. So it's it's been an early morning treat. And so I was so intent just to get this thing going so that I could run today that I didn't have any juice, and I didn't want to make my coffee because it takes a little time, which is fine normally. So I just threw this in because, as you know, my throat's been a little out of it for a few months, and so I wanted something. So here it is. Okay. Let's see. What do we got for good mornings here? We've got George, first one in. How you doing? Good morning from California. I'm sorry about that. You're going to be able to sell your car and get any kind of money out of it now that they've been banned? Rob, how you doing? Hurry back. Ron to the Z. Buenos dias from Pensacola, another Florida chap. Yuka definitely gets the morning recognition. Thank you so much. Tommy, good morning from Georgia. Georgia. Let's see. Don, good morning from Colorado. Big Bills win. Oh my God, what a game that was. You can imagine how I savored that game. You know, and it's funny because everybody was freaking out because they had to cut their punter because of some legal issues. They haven't punted in the last 4 games. so maybe you know, they're going to set record. I think it might even be a record, but if not, they're going to be setting records about not needing punters anymore. And I want to welcome Rumpole Del Bailey. Rumpole on the Bailey. Apparently he's named himself after, what was this? I remember this. It was on PBS or BBC or something. It was a show back in the 70s. It had a long run. I don't know, 15 years or so. And God, I can barely remember it. But apparently he named himself after that show, and he's from Australia. He's not the first person from Australia, but the people that used to watch from Australia I haven't heard from them. They haven't posted any comments anywhere in several years. So this is the first one in quite a while. Sin nombre, happy 9/11. Yeah. Okay. My Colombian wife has become your biggest fan. She makes me ask questions and say hello to you. She watches and I type her commentary. Okay, well, she needn't be shy. Okay. I'm amazed how many people have reached out from me from here in Colombia that actually watch this. It really surprises me. Maybe it's an English practice thing, but or maybe it's not a show all about, you know, how to score. Oh, we talk about that a little bit once in a while, but we're really not about that. It seems like pretty much everyone out there, that's kind of either their main focus or their secondary focus. So maybe that's it. I had somebody commented, what was he said? It was the Australian, Mr. Rumpole Del Bailey on the Bailey. This is the thinking man's Colombian channel. And I had to laugh at that, but I appreciated it. So, yeah, Rumpole of the Bailey. So, thanks for that comment. That was a week or two ago. It's going to be a little awkward because I have to push buttons with my mouse. That means I have to locate things, but we'll get through it. What else we got here? Sorry, my Colombian's wife name is Claudia. Please say hi to her. Hello, Claudia. Hi. Buenos dias. ¿Cómo estás? Muy buenos dias from Belgium. How you doing? The capital of the world? The wannabe capital of the world? LL. Good morning from Playa del Carmen, Mexico. Soon to be back to paradise. Well, you leave here a lot. Agua con gas, carbonated water. This isn't horrible, but it's not good. you know, commercial grade, mass produce Brazilian coffee. It's, you know, it tastes like what it is. Okay. And I know we got quite a few viewers that have traveled to Brazil. I think there's a couple that are there now. A lot of people come here but want to go see Brazil. And I know a friend of mine from Armenia, she's I think she's still there. She was down in Brazil. What? Claudia. Oh, Claudia. Yeah, okay. Yeah. You know, I butcher everything that I say. Have you had the chance to make it back to Salento? Oh, for the restaurant? No. Salento's so far down on my list. The next time I go, I won't go out of my way for that. But the next time I go, I'll make sure that I check it out. Yeah. I'm spoiled. I'm spoiled. This is really isn't that bad. It's just I really am spoiled. Okay. Anonymous. I know who this anonymous is. Mr. Gerald, thank you so much. I, of course, definitely appreciate it. Okay. Friend of mine was visiting her sister, and she lives right next to a Stratus 1 Barrio. She's in Stratus 2. She lives next to Stratus 1. And I've described these before. Here, instead of having the city of San Francisco where everybody lives and poops on the street and, you know, homeless as far as the eye can see, here you have a situation where they basically leave you alone to your own devices. So you can, you know, come up with some scrap wood and pallets and sheets of tin and build yourself a little hovel. And then as you go out and make a little money and improve on your situation, you improve on your little hovel. And these barrios spring up out of that, where they end up putting in brick walls and actual ceilings, and then they run electricity, and then they run water. And so you have claimed land, not land that you own, but you kind of squatted on, and you, over time, you build this up, and other people did it along with you. And next thing you know, you've got this good sized barrio, and it's Stratus 1 because, you know, it's like you wouldn't volunteer to live there, but, you know, it's better than living forever in the street. So, as you can imagine, there's not a lot of planning that goes into these when it comes to access roads or anything really. They just kind of happen. And so what happened was my friend that was there when this fire hit, and she sent me, it's a very short clip. So get your eyes on the screen. It's going to go fast. And 3, 2, 1. The fire ended up, I tried to find it. It was running live on the local newspaper, and it was live on Facebook, and I couldn't find that. I think it just ended. When it ended, it just didn't save it or something. And I caught it, and it showed some of the fire, and I went back and looked, and then it showed they got the fire out. So the fire department actually got there relatively quick. And by the time they put the fire out, there was the equivalent of maybe 20 or 30 homes that had burnt, I'd say, to the ground. And people are already going through, rummaging through, trying to salvage corrugated steel for roofs and things like that. They're already in there trying to salvage it. And as you can imagine, there's a lot of drug buys that go on there. Or maybe you can't imagine, but you know, if you want to go buy some drugs, that's, you know, it's the kind of place you can go buy drugs. And is, you know, there are local jokes about, you know, people token up and where the fire came from, whatever. But it's pretty sad situation. And I was looking on that live stream from the local newspaper, and people were commenting from Armenia. And I'm slow at reading. I can read it, but I was kind of slow at reading it. But I saw a number of comments in there complaining about how Armenia doesn't care about these people, and somehow it was the government of Armenia whose fault it was that there was a fire, and whose fault it was that the fire trucks had trouble getting in there. And the fire trucks had trouble getting in there because it's essentially a road that will only fit the fire truck, and you had cars and other things blocking, and you had people running around because of the fire who didn't really seem to care if the truck got through. I saw clips of that. You know, the trucks beep beep trying to get closer, but there was water for the fire trucks to connect to, so there was that infrastructure. But I just thought it was kind of a ridiculous comment, considering how that barrio came to exist to begin with. I mean, what would you prefer? Would you prefer that the government simply doesn't allow this to happen? And it's not like they have fires, you know, all the time. This is like the big fire. I mean, there hasn't been one like this in my memory. So I just thought it was people just venting their, it's a government's fault, it's government's fault, it's government's fault, when the government didn't have anything to do with it. They didn't start the fire, and the only alternative is they could just stop letting people live and start regulating every aspect. And I hope that doesn't happen. But you know, who knows? Enough people complain, maybe that'll happen. All right, hold on, hold tight. I have to do something here. Don't go away, please. I'm sorry. Come on. You can do it. There we go. Okay, so we had a fire this week. That's kind of my take on it. I want to mention, last week I threw some ideas out, and I asked, you know, send me an email, respond to me, you know, if you want to be involved in me walking you through how to set up a YouTube channel. You could actually make money off it. I mean, I'm banned for life from making money from YouTube, but you could. And you know, it's an interesting hobby. And it doesn't have to be anything like I do. You can, or you could just do anything. I mean, whatever. Like if you're into photography, maybe you could just feature, you know, photographs that you've taken or whatever, just for something interesting to do. I also mentioned that if you guys are interested in live responses, where I could actually bring you in on a video as a guest, and I could call for that, like that. But I would need a producer, somebody to assist. It doesn't amount to much. You just go into software and click a few things, and it's all online. But nobody responded to that. So here's the thing. I get how it is. it can seem like a good idea, but if somebody's not going to follow through on it, nothing's going to happen. I did have one person mention he has some interest in some kind of help with the YouTube. I would really like to get at least 3 or 4, and it's not like I'm charging, but it will require a fair amount of work on my end, and I would like to feel that it's worthwhile doing. And I think having 3 or 4 people, would start with a conversation about, kind of topics and, what your goal is just for hobby. Do you really want to focus it to try to eventually make some money? And I can direct you on that. So feel free to make comments, send me emails if you're interested in doing these things. Otherwise, you just kind of wither on the vine. Let's see, what else? Okie dokie. I would say Lucy, you don't write to me anymore. What the heck? Tommy, that would be a scary situation. Yeah, a lot of people were shook up over it. And it's pretty sad because those people, they're starting back from ground zero. Doc, good morning. Coleman, Dallas, Texas, how you doing? Sin hombre, just about everything is government's fault in Colombia. It's a cultural thing. Yeah, you got a point. There is a lot of that. I think more and more people all over the world have been led to believe that the government can and should fix every problem in life. Well, you're right. Hi, Suri. Hi. How's Panama? Mike, some lagging on stream. It's going out big time here. Is everybody getting the lagging? Feel free to comment if you are, if you're not. I can look at a setting and, well, I don't think I can change anything while I'm on live streaming, but on this end, I've got no frame drops. Everything's looking great. No lagging here. It's fine here. Okay. Just got here. No lagging. All right. Well, you have your local connections too that even if you have something really fast, you can get your glitches once in a while. Okay. What else we got? Oh, Mike. Mike, who's on here pretty much every week, who moved here a year ago, lagging in Bogota. He's made his move yesterday, so he is now living in Pueblo Tapao. He sent me a couple photos last night. I was actually going to put them in, but with everything I was scrambling with, I ran out of time. Just the view of Armenia from his picture window is pretty spectacular. It's almost like a airplane view. It's very, very scenic. It's okay now. Okay, good. All right, awesome. What else we got? Oh, Bogota. Yeah, there's a couple comments I want to address. Somebody sent me a comment and someone else read the comment and then sent me a message. So I'm going to show you the comment, but my response isn't to this comment. It was a comment posted and somebody sent me a message about this comment. Bogota used to be freezing. 1983, I left. When I came back, I could wear a t-shirt on Sundays. I'm not an expert, but the weather changed in Bogota. Same rain, but the sun is different, feels hotter. And understand where that's coming from. I do want to take a moment to clarify because, like I say, I'm clarifying the email I got, but this was the root comment. as I said in the last video, there absolutely is climate change. The question is there some kind of catastrophic climate change that's heading us in a single direction, or is there a cyclical, multi-reason, multifunctional reasons why we have changes to climate? And that's where the science is, if you want to believe the science. And I gave some pretty good examples last time. You know, it's like you can't deny that there's climate change. It's called spring, summer, fall, and winter, for example. You know, so you have your cycles, you have your seasons. I mentioned the sunspots. And I mentioned, I think of the most telling, because in the email he's commenting on the glaciers, how they're melting off the mountains here. And I want to remind what I said last week about that is they're finding discoveries around the world where ice is melting. And they found a World War II airplane under the ice, but they're finding all kinds of things. They're finding animals that have been buried in ice. They're finding, so how did those things get under the ice? It means it was warm like that before. And if you go back and look at the history of temperature of this planet, you have those cycles. And when we were in the 70s and 80s, 1970s, 1980s, everybody was talking about global freezing. We're headed towards another ice age because we're in a cycle where it was colder. And then we dropped out of it. When we dropped out of it, doesn't mean that it's unusually warmer. It means we left where it was unusually colder. And then it's a matter of a window, like how far are we talking? 10 years, 20 years, 100 years, 1,000 years, 1,000,000 years. And that begins to give you perspective on what normal actually is. So to the email, I'm not showing the email. It wasn't the most pleasant email, and I don't want to, but I think I've answered that email in this, and I wanted to do it here online. And I got another comment. I mentioned something about sushi and the sushi restaurants, and that when I lived in Japan, I learned how to make sushi. And the comment on that was talking about the fish or the whatever toppings or whatever's rolled into it. And that's, I just want to mention, you know, a lot of you probably already know this, but that's not what sushi is. Sushi is talking about the rice. That is the sushi. It's the vinegar rice. And it has to be a certain kind of rice. So it has to be a certain type of medium grain rice. The moisture content's important. You have to use a sake vinegar. And when you take that rice out from cooking, you throw it in, well, they use bamboo baskets. I used a wooden bowl when I lived in Japan. And you have to just keep flipping it, you know, with like a ladle, you have to, or a spoon. A wooden paddle is really what it boiled down to. You have to keep flipping it, loosening it up, air cooling it. And then you sprinkle in some of the sake vinegar and you flip it again. And that's what the sushi is. And everything else around it is just something extra. And those are the steps that aren't taken. In the US, it's hard to find good sushi. If you've had actual sushi, it's a difficult thing to find because, you know, why pay twice as much for a harder to find rice when you could just grab some rice off the shelf? Well, then it's not sushi anymore. And there's a huge difference. So that's my response to that. What do we got here? Charlie Sheen style housewarming party at Mike's. I don't know. You have to ask Mike. What's going on with this new Nomad visa? Did you hear anything about it? Yeah, I'm not gonna. It's a digital nomad visa. There's tons of information online. It's a relatively simple, but you have to prove out your source. So it's a little difficult if you're just like if you're not an established YouTuber or actually doing digital nomad work for some company. It can be a little problematic because you have to prove out certain things. And you can't really prove out much of an income on YouTube unless you've been doing it for at least a year or more. It takes time. But they have created that new category, and it is a lot easier to get. The comment represents the problem perfectly. People associated a 10 or so year capture of time against millions of years against naturally occurring climate change. Exactly. Well said. Probably the way I should have said it. but I have to take the long route to get to wherever I'm going. Let's see. Oh, it's working. Great sushi at a local Peruvian restaurant in Bogota. That's very possible. A place like Bogota, first of all. And in Peru, the Japanese have been living in Peru for hundreds of years. They even had a Japanese president at one point, maybe more. I remember one maybe 20, 30 years ago. So I wouldn't doubt that. But you get out here, or Cali, or place. You have to remember, business is business, and you have to go where the demand is. And if you've got a clientele that doesn't even know what sushi is, let alone what good sushi is, you're going to design it so that it suits your taste. We have bizarre kind of sushis here. They have these things that they call them burrito sushi. They're these giant rolls, and they deep fry them, and they fill them with, fried chicken, and it's the farthest thing from sushi that you could possibly get, I imagine. But that's going to represent a type of sushi here. So there's no demand or even a knowledge that there's a different kind of sushi. And, so picture yourself trying to stay in business, and you intensify the labor, you intensify the costs to put out this product where people just kind of lump you in with everything else. How are you going to compete? How are you going to stay in business? If you have enough money to hang in there for a while, then maybe you can, but it's problematic. George, thank you. I know you guys already saw that, but I'm just seeing it now. Most people are too lazy to do thorough research, along with climate change being a good money maker for the wealthy. Well, it is an industry, and it is political. So that's why I mentioned last week, there's two ways to look at it. One is a factual way, and another is a political way. And the political way is also, it's a cash cow. And it's become more than a cash cow. It's become almost a religion, which endows it with certain ability to have power and control. It's really kind of a scary development, and it's kind of sad and sick to see people out there espousing things that are absolutely false. But it's just the way of the world. I got an email from expat group today saying that Colombian visa applications have been frozen. I doubt it. Who was it? Carlos just messaged me that his visa was approved, I think 2 weeks early, which is typical. And I didn't get an email. I really, why would they have frozen it? It just doesn't make sense. There's so much crap out there in expat groups. It's rarely true. And that's sin nombre. When you said that, it's like if I haven't had a chance to look at something, I'm going to assume that it's crap because 95% of the information about practically anything turns out to be crap. And so I just don't really react to it, or I'm not going to believe it till I see it. So to prepare for the new rules, that doesn't make sense. What preparation? I hear you, and I don't doubt that you got an email saying that, but it doesn't take any preparation. The last time we had a rule change, I was here, and they didn't stop anything. So I don't know. Tomorrow I'll email my person. I'll ask. I sincerely doubt it. And even if there was some situation that would be frozen, I mean, it wouldn't be more than a few days because the changes are so minor. It's like you just have one more document to collect. So the police report. And they were prepared for that because that and the retirement was done through the embassy. The embassy just stopped providing those services. So technically it's not even changes. It's not even new. It's just being, now the burden falls to us because the embassy just won't do it anymore. It came from an internet group, so it must be true. Absolutely. Absolutely. Hello from beautiful Dos Quebradas. How about a roll with rainbow trout? Yeah, okay. Who's that through? Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it. The interweb speaks the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Okay. I just had mostly these things to address this week. And so I'm going to, can I make it official or do I not have the ability to do that? Where is my stuff? I don't know where it is. I wish I had my button. There's a reason this thing is so handy. Where I could just push buttons to make things happen. And it's lost in the software. So let's go to the Q&A officially, but it's not official because I can't play it. Yeah, it just comes up with an error. That little triangle there, it's an error. I'll have it working for next week. I just ran out of time today. So, what do we have for questions? Wow, I had a big drop off. A bunch of people just signed out. Oh, I wanted to ask you this week, today or tomorrow, if you're not subscribed on this channel, please, please, please subscribe. I ask you because I'm trying to check something. I've told you for quite a while, the subscriptions really don't mean anything to me because I can't make any money on YouTube anyway. That's true, but there's some things I want to check. And so if you would please, I mean, if you want to later in the week unsubscribe because you don't like subscriptions, that's fine. Go ahead. But please, if you're not subscribed, subscribe today or tomorrow. So that I can check on something. Let's see. Inflation. How is inflation doing in Colombia? Funny that you would ask. I was debating on whether to talk about this or not because, like I said, I ended up losing several hours this morning, and I wanted to do a little research on this for some specific things so I could say more than what the article says and say it with confidence, but I didn't have time, and so I don't really like to half-ass cover something. But you're asking, I had the picture already loaded in. So this is out of the Condillo News, and its inflation in Colombia has reached 10.84%, the highest level since 1999. Inflation is definitely not slowing down here. I was talking to another friend yesterday, and we were discussing this. I mean, before COVID, you could find places where you could get a lunch for 6,000 pesos. Now, granted, that was on the low end, and most probably average around 8,000 pesos. But 6,000, 6,500, you could definitely find them. And that's a lunch with a soup and a juice and a meat and vegetables and just, I'm full kind of lunch. And now those things are running 15,000 to 20,000. It's crazy. According to Professor blah blah, the inflation rate in Colombia is 20%. I take that with a grain of salt, just like anything I say. I'm just going to give anecdotal things because, like I said, I didn't have an opportunity to dig deeper in these things. Usually I'm well armed when I cover a topic, as you know, because I do a lot of research. And I haven't on this. I mean, I did some research a few months ago and when I talked about this, but anecdotally, 20%, I call BS on this because people long distance will say all kinds of things, but when you're in Colombia, I call BS on it because of what I explained before. The things that cost rent, oil, gas, the more expensive items are changing very little. Some things have actually reduced in price. Changing very little. Taxis here in Armenia didn't even go up this year. Other places they did go up, but they don't go up very much. Rents by law can't go up more than 10%. So the big ticket items, there's not big increases. The big increases are coming from $1, $2, $3 items. For example, bananas. They've gone up, they're double what they were last year. Bananas, that used to be one of the cheapest things you could possibly buy. It was amazing how cheap they were. They were almost free, they were so cheap. And now they're double. Eggs. 2 years ago, I could buy a dozen, 5,000 pesos. Now they're running almost 10,000 pesos. So eggs are double. So those are 100% inflation on items like that. But then you have things like potatoes that have actually dropped their price. They're actually cheaper. So for somebody to say 20%, I don't know where the hell they get that. However, I might do some research on this and discover there's some basis for that. I will look into it. But this is what I will say about inflation. People here locally are absolutely feeling it. Imagine, let's think of the United States for a minute, because most of my viewers are from the U.S. It may be you. It certainly will be a lot of people that you know work paycheck to paycheck. What does that mean? It means whatever they make, it goes out to rent, car payment, gasoline in the car, without much of a margin, if any. And then you get inflation. And what happens is you have to actually start cutting, trimming, shaving things back because you just don't have a lot of extra money. And then you start stressing. If you live up north, we're going into the winter, you're going to have to buy heating fuel. It could cost, $1,000 a month. Well, how am I going to deal with that? you have that kind of situation where inflation puts a lot of pressure, even though, it seems like there's a good wage, expenses are high also, and you can really put a squeeze on a large part of the population. Well, it's no different here. You have people that are living from paycheck to paycheck, and they spend what they make. And when you have prices go up on basic food items, which is really where it hurts the most, plus electric has gone up. Electric has gone up, I believe, about 20%. But other things have gone down, utilities. But the electric is a big one. And food especially is having impact. Like I say, rents, gasoline, things like that. There's really not much change. Used cars have gone up a small amount. I think it's not even 5% increase over last year, which is almost kind of a normal increase. So you have a lot of people who are living on the lower end, who are living paycheck to paycheck, that are really getting squeezed now. And we're going to start seeing the same thing you see everywhere this happens. You're going to start seeing an increase in petty crime. Again, not really seeing it here yet, but what do you do when people can't afford, to get basic things? You're also going to see people's diets start to retract, where maybe they were eating pretty good and pretty healthy. They got to start trimming that back, and instead of having rice and meat and vegetables, maybe it'll mostly be rice on some meals. So there's a big effect on people as inflation hits. I'm starting to see. I talk to everybody that I come across that I know about this topic, and they're all feeling it a lot more than they were a few months ago. One even tried to compare it to Venezuela, but we're not there. And it's kind of a worldwide type of thing. And when I look at other places, I feel pretty fortunate to be here. The other aspect is if you're here and you're living off retirement, that foreign exchange rate still is covering up the pain of inflation. So, for us, I mean, I don't want to sound selfish, but I mean, it's just a fact that as that exchange rate's been hovering around 4,400, which is unbelievable. It's spectacular. I mean, we're close. We're not the 46 it was a month or two ago, but it's really been hovering around that 4,400 mark. And there's a big difference between that and 38 that it was at for a long time. So as that inflation goes up, it's kind of being absorbed by the exchange rate. So I'm very fortunate when it comes to that. Good news, 20% of all calories worldwide are from rice. Colombia is a net exporter of rice. Not much chance of devastating food shortages in Colombia. Yes and no. We're one bad crop away from some real issues. Colombia, when I lived here before, was basically a country that was experiencing for a number of years famine. I've talked about this before, that when I lived here before, nobody was as tall as I am, and I'm only 5'10". And it was really, the most striking was I went into a bank and it had a line that just filled up the whole bank. And I was tallest person in there by a head. I mean, it really struck me then how much taller I was. I didn't really think about it prior to that, but being in a room with all those people and nobody was as tall as I was. And that was all related to the diet. At the time I thought, well, they're just short people. They're just small people. It was a diet. They were having a lot of problems with diet. And I've mentioned, Milo, fortified, certain things coming out that people could afford and put nutrition into their bodies. And now we look 20 years later, and it's not unusual to see a Colombian 6 foot or taller. Look at the police and military. It's, you got these guys that, tower over me. Same people, 20 years later. It's in the diet. And it happened before, and it could potentially happen again. I mean, I'm not predicting it. I'm not saying that is going to happen. I doubt it will, but I wouldn't just dismiss it as not a possibility. Inflation in Colombia in 1987, 23.3%, goes up, goes down. Well, inflation in the world goes up and goes down. So just like now, I mean, it's not like Colombia's sitting here, sailing a lone ship. I mean, every country in the world is experiencing inflation as a direct result of the insane lockdowns that we went through. It's really put a hurt on, and Colombia's, sadly is part of that. Just curious if you ever looked into the AT&T new plan that includes Latin America, only that it exists, not in detail. I saw the same thing with diet and height in Korea. Absolutely. That's a really good example, because if you go back in the 50s and before in Korea, everybody was really short. And you think, well, Asian people tend to be short. But I had a joint exercise with Korean Marines, who are some of the most badass people on this planet. And they were, I think the shortest amongst them was probably 6 foot. These are big dudes. It's amazing the populations around this planet that we just assume are it's in their DNA to be short, and it is in many, but there are also many populations that's direct result of their diet, and as that diet improves, as there's more wealth in that economy, how they get taller, and they get taller relatively quick within a generation. I guess Petro's utopia is not coming to fruition. Yeah, who knows? It's like I'm steering clear, just like I said last week. It's too soon to know what's going on, and it's not like he's king. He's thrown some things out there that are pretty ridiculous that he would like to see, but I just don't think it's going to happen. But they did open the Venezuelan border, I think yesterday. It's officially open now. That, in a lot of ways, that could be really good for Colombia, because if that has the result of a lot of Venezuelans deciding to go back to, excuse me, sorry about that. This coffee, I tell you, it's playing havoc with me. See if I can get rid of it. A little bitter. And cold. There's a possibility that this border being open will motivate a fair number of Venezuelans to return to Venezuela, even if it's only to visit family, knowing that they can go back and forth across the border now, unlike having to escape and go through all the things that they had to before. So that's one positive. Another positive is Colombia was a net beneficiary of finance when that border was open. So if we have, I know this is a shot in the dark, but if we have, hang with me, theoretically, if you have a fair number of Venezuelans leave Colombia and you have some resumption of economic activity to benefit Colombia, it could be huge for the economy. that could really make a difference. So, you know, I'm not quick to jump and say, I mean, I don't want to. Maduro is a disaster. Everybody knows it. Any Venezuelan you talk to, I mean, they say his name and then they spit on the ground. I mean, he's a total disaster. But you have to wonder sometimes, in trying to isolate him, which really didn't work, but those actions ended up hurting your own people to a certain extent. Is it the best way to go? I mean, maybe it is. I'll be perfectly straight with you. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the best way would go. It's a no-win situation, but it's definitely something to consider. Governments around the world have this insane idea of energy, war on energy. Yeah, well, you know, it all goes to that climate religion. You know, the people that are screaming the loudest about climate are the ones that are flying around the world in their jets. So obviously, it's, you know, I mentioned it's a power and control thing. It's political. I was thinking, how horrifying would it be? Yeah, this ran through my head. When they announced that you can no longer buy gasoline cars, they're essentially going to be banned from California, what, 8 years, 7 years, something like that, which will require all cars to be electric. All right. Well, on the face of it, most people, even people that love electric cars, are going to see where that's a bad idea. And when they come out the very next day and said, please don't charge your cars because we got rolling brownouts because, you know, we canceled all of the fossil fuel energy and the windmills just aren't keeping up. Okay, so you got that. But look a little deeper. Let's get a little conspiratorial. When you can individually run around and store and buy gasoline different places, it's much more difficult to control than if you basically, you're sitting in that government house and you can throw a switch and turn off electricity. And if people's transportation, food deliveries, everything depend on that, what level of power does that give the person who has access to that switch? You know, the more that they eliminate people's autonomy, the more opportunity there is to be a dictatorial control freak. Now, I don't know. I'm not saying that's the case, but you have to wonder. You know, you have to consider something like that. Inside info on the buildup of guerrilla groups, possible reformation of the us. Yeah, I'm wondering if I should talk. I'm not ready to talk about this yet. There's been a number of things. I mentioned control to fight against these. Some of these groups being funded out of Mexico are growing. There's some potential real concerns there. So I don't know. Not ready for that topic yet. Not just flying around in their jets, but also buying oceanfront mansions. Yeah. But that sea level, you know, the power grid in California can't sustain the amount of electric cars needed. Oh yeah, that's absolutely the case, and more than that, I mean, it can't even sustain their air conditioners. They need to revamp it, let alone the electric cars. They had rolling brownouts before electric cars became a thing. They're only, what, 10-15% of the cars in California? But if you have solar panels and batteries, you can be independent. Yeah, possibly. Good counter argument. Yeah, I like that. I like to give all this a lot more thought. speaking off the cuff here on these things. You can't throw batteries in the landfills because they're so bad for the environment. How can that be better for the environment than fossil fuels? Well, that's a whole other thing. Just the mining of those goods is atrocious for the environment. But it doesn't matter. You know, it's like I said, it's not based on rational science. It's based on politics and power. And I don't mean electrical power. Not just California, all the U.S. power grid is not efficient enough for all electric cars. Well, yeah, absolutely right now. It could be, you know, if they would, I was looking, I was on the YouTube, and I saw this submarine nuclear power plant that doesn't need to be refilled. And it's just swapped out after 30 years. So I skipped through and got to that part. Well, that's pretty interesting. So then I Googled nuclear reactors. That the technology has not been standing still. And they have nuclear reactors now. They're at such a state that you can't get the kind of meltdowns that could occur in the past. And they're self-contained units. And you plug them in and use them up, and then you pull out that entire container system with no radiation, and you know, you can dispose of that, and it doesn't seep into the ground. It's amazing what they've done. And so you have to wonder if they really want to save the world climate, why aren't they putting these nuclear reactors up? You know, it's like they should be putting these things up all over the place. I mean, we already know that the windmills, they produce electricity, but they're a world of problems, and they don't work in a lot of parts of the world. A lot of parts of the United States, they just don't function the way people want. They were talking about putting these offshore kind of like turbos where the constant, like the Gulf Stream, for example, would run these things 24/7. But then they couldn't figure out how to stop from killing all the fish. You know, the solar cells, there's real issues with it. They're not that efficient. I mean, they're not even 50% efficient. And they use a lot of toxic material. They get dirty. There's a certain amount of maintenance, and it's when you go to clean it, it almost has to be somebody specialized, or you can cause damage to it so that the efficiency dramatically drops down. There's all kinds of issues with what exists today, and what exists today just is not ready to do what it is they want to do, and it won't be in 10 years. However, those nuclear power plants are ready. They are ready. So if you want to get away from coal and oil, it's real simple. Start putting these things up. They don't even cost anywhere near what they used to cost. I always wondered why they couldn't make these things self-contained. Well, they can. They've done it. They're smaller units. They're much more efficient than they used to be. Don't worry about America's problem. It'll be solved by sending more money to Ukraine. Yeah, it's pretty funny. It's about impoverishing people internationally. I believe there's something to that. I've come out and said it. They have an internet page that anybody can go look at about the Great Reset. There's actually an internet page. It's not a conspiracy anymore. It's a reality. And you've heard a lot of public people just come right out and admit it, talk about it. Check about thorium reactors. They do not create radioactive waste. Yep, that was one of the things that I saw. Kentucky coal is still being burned. It's just being burned in China now. Yeah, that's a thing. You can ban all you want, but China doesn't give a crap. The good thing is those things aren't actually destroying the planet. All these predictions, there's a reason they just fail to come true, because it's not having the effect. I mean, Earth is huge compared to these things. And if you take the amount, okay, I don't have it in front of me, but I did read about this. If you take a volcano like Mount Vesuvius, for example, it would take decades for that coal being burned in China to come close to being the equivalent of what got spewed into the atmosphere from Mount Vesuvius. And there's things all over, like the meteor that hit in Mexico, killed all the dinosaurs. Well, they've discovered that at the same time, I mean, like same day, next day, there are actually 4 or 5 huge ones that hit in other places. There was one that between South America and Africa, right about in the middle, it's 10 kilometers wide, the crater, but it's under the ocean. So it was only just recently discovered, like in the last month or so. And it was the same, it was apparently there was this stream of huge meteors that hit the earth, and wiped out an entire species, or multitude of species. So but the earth recovered from that. It kind of cleaned up its own act. It's an amazingly efficient globe. The sand in the Sahara blows across into the Amazon, and that's used to renew the Amazon, which filters the air of the planet. I mean, it's amazing. It's almost like it was designed. How crazy is that? Okay, I'm rambling on. We've already gone over an hour. Is there anything about Colombia? I really got off on a tangent today. You guys took me down the garden path. Is there anything about Colombia that anybody wants to pose? I know. Yeah, I mean, you couldn't sit down and design it better, right? I mean, the way everything kind of interacts with each other, and one thing that's always fascinated me is how things grow where they're needed. You have the coca leaf, which is a stimulant that helps your breathing in high altitude places. And where does it grow? In high altitude places. I mean, it's almost like somebody planned it, right? It doesn't grow out in some desert somewhere. It grows in high altitude places. It's crazy. How's the construction on the roads going? It's going. I'm not sure what roads you mean. Most of the roads around here are pretty nice, but the ones in Armenia, they really need some attention. And they're getting attention. I just wish it was faster. It reminds me a lot of, there's a lot of places in New York where there's a lot of rough roads in a lot of places, and they're constantly working on it year round, and they just can't seem to catch up. And Armenia just, it kind of feels that way to me. Are the women beautiful in Colombia? Oh my God. Just blame us for you jump down this rabbit hole. Well, it is your fault. It's all your fault. Entirely. None of it's mine. Am I going to have to do a 10+ hour drive from Condillo to Medellin and vice versa? Well, I haven't been on that road in years. 10+ hour drive. I don't know. Last person told me that there was a fair amount of road construction and took them something like 8 hours by bus. It should be about a 6.5 hour bus ride. But here's the thing. Just fall asleep. I used to not be able to sleep in airplanes and buses, but when I was in Ecuador, I took buses everywhere, and I travel a lot around Ecuador. And then my travels from Cuenca to Armenia, I did 8 of those trips back and forth. I got so I could just go to sleep, and it's pretty cool. I mean, you fall asleep, you wake up because they stop someplace for lunch. You go grab something to drink, you get back on the bus, you fall asleep again, you wake up and you're there. So I don't know. Plus, you get to see a lot of things. I mean, I wouldn't want to do it time after time. But if I was never a bus person, and my preferred form of travel, particularly in the Andes, is actually buses. I actually like riding the buses. First time message, long time fan. I've seen your name, but thanks for dropping a message. I was driving, falling asleep would not have been a good idea. You know, absolutely. You definitely don't want to fall asleep. You know, just there's plenty of places to pull off and go to sleep. Plan it out. Don't push so hard. If you're worried about it, make it a 2-day drive. Make it kind of relaxing. 4 or 5 years ago, the information on Google was just ridiculous. Like if you pull up your Google Maps and you're doing a GPS thing, have like green for clear driving and red if it's, like congested, and yellow if it's kind of getting there but still passable. That's actually become pretty accurate. When I go to Pereira, it's been spot on. So can you fly into Cuenca? Yeah, Cuenca has a little airport. It depends, where you're coming from, but most of the flight, like from the US, I don't know if they have any international flights. I had to fly to, not Bogota, what's Quito. I had to fly to Quito and then to Cuenca. From Colombia. Colombia? You know better than that. I don't know. When I go back, I'll either drive or take a bus. I won't fly. But I just never looked. Are you being adventurous and eating many of Colombia's wonderful fruits? You could eat a new variety every day of the year, missing that. I've been through that. I actually went through all that pretty much in Ecuador. And after a while, you just kind of hover around the ones, your favorites. And occasionally you might grab something that's in season. There's a lot of them. But I know this is going to sound really sad and really boring. Considering I've had pretty much everything that you can find out there, my favorites are strawberries, blueberries, watermelon, oranges, tangerines, bananas lower on the list. Those are my favorite fruits. I know it's crazy because there's a lot of really good things. But the thing is, like pitahaya, for example, or dragon fruit. It's good. Some kind of bland, some are really flavorful, but it's good. But if you eat a whole one, or definitely more than one, then you end up with a runs for a couple days. So I kind of, it's all right. Is it worth it? Yeah. Now and then, I probably have one once or twice a year. The little taco fruit looks like a jalapeno. It's okay, guanabana. That's a favorite here. Do 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 banana do 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 do. I'm not a fan of it. I just don't care for it. And it's like one of that and Lulu are the most popular fruit drinks here, at least in Armenia. So yeah, they're there. I've had them. Like most of them, some of them, man, not so much. But I have my favorites. So, I'm just at a point where I mostly do my favorites. Have a great week. It's time for the NFL. Yeah, we got to get off. I'm not going to be watching football. I already saw my football. Ladas. The U.S. Open tennis final is coming in a couple hours, which should be amazing. Peaches, mangoes, durian. Yeah, mangoes. I buy mangoes fairly often. I buy grapes reasonably often. Ones out of Chile. All right, that's it. Let's close it out here. So thank you guys. Thank you all. As always, you're so appreciated. Give some thoughts about the things I mentioned last week. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just go watch last week's. I had a number of ideas for you guys and offered to help. And, I just have this urge. I just want to gush for the next 20 minutes about how awesome you guys are and how important it's such an important thing in my life these days.